Greetings, pals. Squancho the Monkey Boy here yet again to read another chapter from the greatest story ever told, Ballsfart and the Forest of Penises. Oh, your friend Squancho's having a bit of a hard time this week. Recovering from a crippling Xanax addiction. I'm told that I read chapter 14 last week. I have no recollection of that. I can't sleep and I feel very itchy. And I wanted to thank everybody who's done anything that is good. If you've commented or liked or subscribed or bought the book in either digital or physical form, or donated to the Patreon, or done any of the things that you can do, thank you from the bottom of Sir Ballsfart's heart and mine as well. Trigger warning! Always a trigger warning. This chapter, I believe, is still about goblins. So it's probably extremely, even more problematic and offensive than previous chapters. I'm not sure how that's possible, but, I'm sure they will find a way. So, let's get this over with, and let's get excited for chapter 15, entitled Shockholm is where the Ballsfart is. That's a nice pun. All right. Jumfrey slept for like 10 hours, during which time I could do literally nothing but hang out in the cage, just sitting there, watching my broken cock swell up and blister from its very recent bug stings. Making the best of a bad situation, I decided that having a damaged magical cock would be my best excuse if Jumfrey ever asked me to actually play Cthulhu. I'd just say that I would love to, but couldn't until my poor destroyed pecker was all better again. Brilliant. Daily life in Shockholm was more boring than I had expected, honestly. Regular goblins were a lot more violent and quarrelsome, but these gablins were pretty chill for the most part. Sure, every once in a while one would make a comment about the fucked up mermaid in that cage over there, and at one point an old drunk one even stumbled over to check me out and poked my flipper with the end of a spear. But by and large, nothing remarkable happened during this time while Jumfrey remained passed out. Mainly, I just stewed about how much I needed to get the fuck out of there. Wondered if I'd ever find my lance again, and fantasized about different ways to jam it through Baron Rapefist's dumb fucking face. Finally, Jumfrey emerged from his hovel, stretching and yawning. He was shirtless and scratching his distended goblin belly as he began speaking. "Ready for practice?" he asked before one last big yawn. "I want to get as much in as we can because we've got something special happening tonight." "Sure," I said apathetically. I didn't care what we did. I was just bored out of my fucking skull. Jumfrey took a seat on some dried bricks and set his cachotlet on his knee. All right there, I could tell that he wasn't doing it right.
Not on your knee,
I instructed. What? But that's where it gets the best balance.
Nope, pull it over by your hip. Now again, let's just work on getting it tuned first. Start with the top string.
First string?
Yeah, whatever. Just give it a pluck.
I cringed in anticipation, and I was right to do so. The damn thing sounded like having your balls stomped by a billy goat.
Nope, still bad. Now turn the twisty part at the end of the string.
What's that called?
Fuck!
Time to get clever, Ballsfart.
It's called the, top knobber.
Nailed it. Jumfrey twisted the knob a little bit.
Okay, now try it again.
This time it sounded more like having your balls firmly flicked by a billy goat. Still bad, but not as bad. It's what we adventurers call progress.
Keep twisting the top knobber.
Eventually, we got the string sounding at least remotely audible. Then, slowly and painfully, we went through each of the cachotlet's 11 strings. Jumfrey didn't have all the little cymbals that were supposed to connect onto the little drum parts of the cachotlet, but that was fine. More cymbals probably would have only made it worse. And so, over the next several hours, I explained to Jumfrey basic musical concepts like rhythm and beat, which were about the extent of my own personal knowledge, but still miles ahead of what most goblins were working with. This session was almost as boring as doing nothing at all, and seemed to go on forever. I was nearly falling asleep when Jumfrey suddenly set down the cachotlet, proclaiming, "It's time!"
It's time for what, Jumfrey?
I asked through my heavy eyelids. "We're going to the hub. There's a Grimhilda show tonight. We have to go. You need to hear her music so you can teach it to me."
I'm not so sure that I'm still awake enough to do that.
No, Ballsfart, you have to. She's performing Love Spanker, and that's my favourite song. I don't know when she'll be performing it again. Jumfrey began tying his rope around the cage. Fuck. I was pretty grumpy and getting drowsier by the second, but whatever. I could stay up for a quick show, I guess. I laid my head on the floor of the cage and tried to get a quick nap in during the ride, but the rocky path made that pretty much impossible, and after bumping and bouncing over multiple stone bridges, we finally arrived at the hub. Wow! The place was pretty packed. I could see at least 60 goblins there, and I assumed that was probably the whole population. In the middle of the crowd stood a tall, jagged black stone, upon which leaned an old and twisted goblin wearing strange rags. The old goblin was swaying, waving his arms around and mumbling trippy nonsense. And though Jumfrey and I were near the back, we still had a decent view. Soon, the old goblin shaman began swinging around potions and drinking some of them while he did a weird little dance upon his weird little peak. These potions were each tied onto ropes that dangled from his body, and sometimes, instead of drinking a bottle, the shaman would just throw it down on the rock, smashing it and releasing a huge puff of brightly coloured smoke. Some of these puffs were red, and others were blue and green, and as these clouds swirled together, they obscured the old shaman until he was no longer visible, replacing his silhouette with weirder twisting forms. The colours then intermingled, and gradually the shadows within began slowly transforming into discernible images. By this point, the cloud had grown massive, reaching up to the ceiling of the cave, and peering into it now felt like looking into a portal through space. Within, I could see a room, a great and regal hall of some powerful king or lord, and as the image became clearer, I could tell that I was looking into one of the castles of the Lamia. There was a whole crowd of half-snake people sitting before me, though they didn't seem to notice all the goblins watching them, but instead focused their attention on the pedestal in the centre of the hall. Around this pedestal stood many other Lamia, dressed in stately attire and holding instruments. And then she appeared, the tall female Lamia draped in majestic robes. She manifested from the background, inspiring the applause of her serpentine audience, and the goblins that surrounded me immediately followed suit. The fervour was ecstatic, as though they were all looking upon a goddess. Some leapt into the air, while others vehemently cheered, and then, after only a few more seconds, the goblin crowd and the Lamia crowd both quieted down to complete silence. And so began the playing of the first song, and that's when the Lamia in the centre began to sing. Now, personally, she wasn't playing my preferred style of music. No, it was definitely too cheesy for me. But I will admit that the song was very well produced. And those dance moves, man, wow, she definitely had skills. No arguing with that. When the song came to an end, the goblins in the chamber could hardly contain their jubilation, most of them hooting and hollering like they just won £1,000,000 of gold. I looked over at Jumfrey, who seemed ready to cry, though of course he wasn't, because goblins aren't capable of producing tears. Everyone then got quiet once more, and Grimhilda went into her next song. This second jam was not nearly so upbeat as the first song, being much more of a ballad, but I think it made for good contrast. Again, it certainly didn't match with my personal tastes, but who am I to argue with free live music? Or, you know, whatever you call it when a shaman channels a live performance through a cloud. I was also, admittedly, really taken aback when Grimhilda got into the final chorus of that second song, and all of the goblins in the room joined in. That part was pretty wild. I was mainly just surprised that everyone knew the words, though not one of them came even close to hitting the correct notes. Now, by song 3, sure, I guess I was sort of getting into it, and though I had been tired at the start of the performance, I was now wide awake. Yes, the goblins were technically right about Grimhilda. She was kind of fucking awesome. And man, her costume changes were just bananas. At one point, she even came out wearing nothing but actual bananas. I'd never seen anything like that before. It was crazy. And pretty soon, I too was clapping and bobbing and trying to sing along with everyone else. I mean, come on. I've paid good money for shows that were nowhere near as solid as this. The production value alone deserved an ounce of gold, and the musicianship and vocal talent on display were just on another level. Taken together, it was a genuinely unmatched performance. I guess I could see the appeal. And finally, when Grimhilda let us know that she was leaving after the next song, my heart sincerely broke a little bit, along with everyone else's in the room. It was strangely grueling knowing that such an engaging experience would be coming to an end. But that's how life goes, I guess. Grimhilda bowed, we all screamed our heads off, and like the unstoppable bad bitch she was, Grimhilda slithered her serpentine ass off the stage to endless adulation. I turned to Jumfrey and just mouthed, "Wow." Had I said it out loud, he wouldn't have been able to hear me anyway, for the whole cave was still roaring. But inevitably, I stopped clapping my hands, took a deep breath, and got ready to return to my own personal nightmare of being a mermaid's slave pet in Gablin Town. But then Grimhilda came back. Holy shit. They said it was called an encore. And seriously, you guys, it was the greatest feeling in the world. And that's when she played Love Spanker. I looked at Jumfrey and he was just in a daze. I'd never seen him like that before. This was his element. This was his jam. The song itself wasn't upbeat, but it built up slowly into something both empowering and inspiring. And as it got to that final chorus, all the goblins in Stockholm swayed in unison. And that's when it happened. My jaw wrenched to the side. It twitched, and I felt my canines and tusks recede. I didn't even realise what was going on at first, and had trouble breathing as one by one my rib slits sealed up. I looked around, and starting at the tips of my toes, my big, gross fish flipper transfigured back into the hairy man legs that I had known before. This was good, at least that's what I thought, until the process reached my butt, where it released a whole week's worth of built-up dookie that I had been somehow storing in the back of my fishtail. Oh boy, that was not good. Right in the middle of the most beautiful and transcendent moment of the night, I had just turned into a chubby naked human and dropped a 20-pound steaming dumper right there in the middle of the whole party. Jumfrey stared at me with horror. I stared back at Jumfrey. All of the goblins around us recoiled in a wave of disgust. What the fuck is that smell? Came a scream from the middle of the audience. Abruptly, the music cut out and the multicolored clouds dissipated. The shaman came forward, swatting his way through the air. Fuck! It smells like someone took a shit right in my nostrils. What the fuck? Show's over. Show's over. I can't work like this. Jumfrey, I think we need to get out of here, I said anxiously. What's going on, Ballsfart? I'll tell you when we get home. Let's just go, man. It's like zombies fucked rotten cabbage, shouted someone nearby while gagging. It's coming from the caged human. That nug fucker, screeched another. He ruined the show. I'm sorry, I shouted, no longer with my speech impediment. Come on, Jumfrey, let's roll. But what happened to your tail? You're a human now? What? No, go! A small rock smacked me right in the back of my head. It's a long story, Jumfrey. I'll tell you later. We've got to get out of here. Another couple rocks pelted my side. Jumfrey looked around, baffled, then turned back towards me. Not until you tell me what's going on. A bird shit brick hit me across my already battered chest, and I winced like a bitch. It's my dick, Jumfrey. You know I have a magic schlong. This happened because Grimhilda gave me a boner. I can't help it. Jumfrey looked at me seriously. I couldn't tell if he trusted me, but I had been rock hard through the entire show, which corroborated my story. Humphrey then turned to the others. Stop! Stop! Everyone, wait! It's not his fault. Not his fault, came a voice from the crowd. He's brought at least a pillowcase full of rotting turds into our special recreation time. You know how important this is to us. Of course I know, shouted Humphrey. And he knows too. Didn't you see him? He loves Grimhilda, just like the rest of us. Isn't that true, Ballsfart? A sharp pebble beamed me right in the temple. Grimhilda is life, I screamed. He just got a magic boner, is all. Magic boner? Shouted someone else in the crowd. What the fuck is that? He's got a magic penis. It lets him play cutlet and also grow legs sometimes. Grimhilda's beauty gave him a boner he couldn't control. He did not mean to bring these turds before us. It was his boner. Here, here, halt your stoning, shouted the shaman, still perched upon the great jagged rock and partially shrouded within receding multicoloured mists. If what Humphrey says is true about this disgusting creature's magical penis, then he is right. We should not slay him simply because he cannot control his boners. For we too know the pain of being attacked for boners that are beyond our control. The crowd paused. Some of the goblins grumbled. Some scratched their chins in deep thought. Everyone looked around, vaguely confused. Finally, a voice rose up from the distance. Well, get him the fuck out of here! He stinks like a rotting asshole. I will, shouted Humphrey. Thank you. Sorry. He grabbed onto the rope and pulled tight, making eye contact with me as we marched out of the crowd. Thank you, I whispered while rubbing my aching chest. Humphrey said nothing. He just dragged me back towards his house over what felt like an extra long ride, being as quiet and awkward as it was. As we crossed over that last bridge, reaching his house, we stopped so I could shovel my shit into the underground river with my hands. Being mostly comprised of digested sea slug, this feces was much creamier than usual, making the activity particularly difficult. As I continued shoveling, a familiar shitty voice began to approach. Oh, fuck. It was that cunt Demondis, and he was clapping sarcastically. What a show! Comstain! What a show! So what? Now your pet has a butthole for you to fuck? Are you going to fuck it now? Because no one's ever gonna fuck you, Humphrey! Everyone hates you! Real fucking original, jackass! I shouted while pressing my own feces through the bars of my cage. The fuck you say to me, human?
Oh, you couldn't tell, right? Because you're a fucking jackass. A big surprise.
Demundus punched Jumfrey in the side of his head.
Don't you let your ugly shit slave say shit like that to me, Comstain.
I can't control what he says, said Jumfrey, holding his ear in pain.
Oh, yeah? Well, maybe there's no learning this
retard. Demundus took hold of the cage and jerked it hard to the side. What are you doing? Shouted Jumfrey, trying to halt the inevitable. Stop it!
I'm saying if your dumb fat mermaid still knows how to swim.
And with that powerful jerk, Demundus lunged into the cage, rolling it over the edge of the bridge and right into the rushing waters below. Sure, I totally saw this coming, but the chaotic torrent overwhelmed my senses nonetheless as I plunged beneath the surface. At first, I just panicked and assumed that I was being washed into some pitch-black cave to my death, but soon realised that the cage was actually stationary, still hanging from Jumfrey's long rope. It must have gotten caught on the bridge somehow. I looked upward, and above me, mixed up in the running water, I could barely see Jumfrey and Demundus duking it out, though really it was just Demundus beating Jumfrey's pansy ass. The lesser goblin was on all fours, being choked from behind. Wait a second. Were they fucking... Now is not the time, Jumfrey. Wait, no, they definitely weren't fucking. Jumfrey just really sucks at fighting. As I rattled my submerged cage, I considered how fucked this situation was. Not only was I going to be drowned down here, but I also had to watch Jumfrey be a little bitch while it happened. Damn it! I looked back up to find Demundus now trying to shove Jumfrey off the bridge. But Jumfrey was wiry. He had hooked his leg around part of the coping and was holding on tight. Desperate enough to try anything, I pulled myself up to the top of the bars, hoping to push my lips through them and taste some morsel of breathable air. But the cage was simply too far beneath the surface. Fuck! Just then, I felt a heavy crash smack right into my face as Jumfrey landed atop the cage. Double fuck. Now, all Demundus had to do was loosen whatever was holding the rope onto the bridge, and we'd both be flushed down to our dooms. Oh well, at least I got to see Grimhilda. But what was this? Jumfrey was taking action, and being not quite so brain-dead as the average goblin, he pulled out the keys to my cage and unlocked the side door. It took all of my manly strength to push the door against the rushing torrent, but I am objectively a badass, and in a couple seconds the door was open and I was climbing out. I was still buck naked, mind you, but I was also now freshly washed of my rancid feces, dried puke, and crusty goblin cum. So then, in a single manly heave, I summited the dangling cage where Jumfrey knelt beside the outstretched rope. I then hoisted myself back up onto the bridge, and though my ribs still ached like fuck all, and Demundus was freaking out and kicking me in the head, I rose nonetheless like a fucking phoenix of white-hot human rage. Quick history lesson. Goblins ain't nothing but little bitches. They may be able to kill you in groups when they've all got weapons, but on their own, cowering on a bridge and completely unarmed, even the most broken and naked fat guy can completely fuck them up. I grabbed hold of Demundus by his green, shitty little head and then smashed him into the floor of the bridge. I then straddled him and proceeded to pummel the all-living fuck out of his stupid, ugly face. Sure, I guess I could have just tossed him into the river, but I really, really wanted this shit-filled cunt to taste my bloody wrath. In my fury, I delivered a few more head smashes against the rock bridge before moving on to his torso, not wanting him to completely lose consciousness. Next, I broke all of the bones in each and every one of his ribs, fingers, and toes. It took a few minutes, but I was very thorough. At around this point, from the corner of my eye, I could see that there was a crowd growing on either side of the river, and though most of them had weapons, they didn't appear offensive. Each of them only standing around and watching as the pissed-off, hairy human annihilated the screaming goblin on the bridge. Finally, when there was no more pain to be delivered, I lifted Demundus up by his little bitch throat and chucked him into the river, just like the little bitch that he was. His body splashed into the water, drowned, and was immediately sucked downstream. I turned to the crowd, who seemed both amazed and horrified. Ballsfart! The call came from behind me, and I turned to find that I had accidentally loosened the cage with my godlike ass bleeding. Jumfrey, still atop it, riding a swift current to his doom. Shit. Well, there goes Jumfrey. As I stepped off the bridge, the crowd parted uneasily. Ballsfart! Help! Begged Jumfrey again, still sliding away in my periphery. I turned and squinted and could see that in a few seconds he'd be sucked into a cave at the end of the river and no longer my problem. I looked back at the goblins around me, some of whom held their spears timidly in my direction, and I pushed one aside with my finger as I walked. Ballsfart! Please! You're my only friend! Fuck. I remembered what a pathetic little bitch Jumfrey was, and how he had literally just saved me from drowning a minute ago, and how I had also lost my most recent best friend in these underground rivers, and how I didn't want to be anything like that traitor piece of shit Skullhorns. Fuck. I sighed loudly. I then shoved the goblins aside and started sprinting down the river. I didn't have long to reach Jumfrey before he got sucked into that cave, and as I sprinted, I looked around for something to reach out to him with, like a big stick maybe, but there wasn't any time for that. I just kept running. I don't know if you've ever run naked before, but it's great, except if you're a man, because your dick flops around, or if you're a woman, because your tits flop around, or if you're a chubby man, because both your dick and your tits flop around. Flopping all around, I continued sprinting alongside Jumfrey for a few paces, but I still couldn't reach him with my hands. The river was too wide, though it was narrow at the very end, right before the big suck. There was only one thing I could do. I bolted to the end of the stream, positioned my toes on the edge, and fell forward, catching myself in a plank position, my hands on the other side and my whole body straddling the roaring waters below. The goblin and the cage dashed beneath me, and Jumfrey did the only thing that he could. He reached up and he grabbed onto my swollen and blistered penis just before the cage was slurped into oblivion. I winced in pain and looked down to find Jumfrey hanging from my dick, his toes dangling in the water, and for a second we made eye contact, which I regret. Yes, it hurt like a motherfucker, but after everything my dick had been through, I was about as used to unimaginable dick pain as anyone could be. The crowd of goblins joined us on either side of the river, bridging the gap beneath me with their spears, and after they'd laid down a few of them, Jumfrey was able to swing himself back over to dry land. I, on the other hand, had to wait until they laid down several more spears due to my rotund mass. I then crawled awkwardly back to safety, trying not to bend over too much because then everyone could see my butthole. "You saved my life, Ballsfart," said Jumfrey. "You're my hero." "And he murdered Demundis," squawked a familiar voice. I turned to behold the grizzled figure of that old goblin shaman. Shit. I know nothing about goblin law. It was time to learn another lesson the hard way. "And I just want to be the first goblin to thank you," laughed the shaman. "What?" I asked, standing naked in a cave and surrounded by homosexual goblins. "And also, I think I speak for most of us when I say, fuck that guy. We really hated him. Fuck Demundis."
Seriously?
"Yeah. Fucking. Who gives a shit? Take care now." And with that, the shaman hobbled back through the crowd.
Cool. So, is it all right that I'm a human now?
Jumfrey shrugged. "I don't think it's your fault that you get magic bonus. And besides, your magic penis is the only reason that I'm alive."
Oh, well, all right then.
I looked around at all the other goblins, none of which seemed particularly hostile. Zotard and Puckfane stood among them near the back.
So, are you guys going to try to kill me now, or torture me again?
Zotard blew a snot rocket and then looked back at me. "Why?"
I don't know. I wasn't sure why you were doing it in the first place.
"We tortured you because we caught you," replied Puckfane. "And we're goblins. That's what we do. But that was like over a day ago. So much has changed since then. Let it go. Just don't ruin Grimhilda again." The other goblins nodded in agreement. Wow, I wasn't expecting that at all. I had only known goblins to be a ravenous species of sadistic assholes. It almost felt like this had to be some sort of trick.
So, I assume I must leave immediately?
I asked to no one in particular. The goblins all looked at one another again, and Then one goblin, after hitting a glass bong, exhaled a cloud of smoke and said,
I don't think anyone gives a shit, dude.
Wow. Fucking believable. These voracious little monster faggots were just letting me go.
Oh, well,
I considered pushing my luck.
then do you care if I hit that bong?
Dude, I don't even know your fucking name,
retorted the goblin as he started bubbling the bong again.
I am Sir Ballsfart,
I proclaimed to the crowd.
I am a famous adventurer.
The stoner goblin breathed out more smoke.
Yeah, that's a stupid fucking name. My name's Schwamp. Here, smoke up, but don't fucking cash it.
Schwamp handed me the bong, as well as the small burning piece of wick that he used to light it.
Thanks.
I said as I raised the bong to my mouth. My eyes then studied the goblin crowd as I took a hit. Weird. I still felt like this had to be a trap. There was no way it could really be this easy. But no one was throwing a net over my head or ramming a spear into my back or anything. It was almost like they had just accepted me.
Good job on killing Demundus, said one of the goblins. That dude had 0 chill. Sucks about your boner curse, though.
I kept hitting the bong.
Whoa, slow down there, fag boy,
said Schwamp, reaching for his bong. I pulled the bong from my mouth angrily.
Who the fuck you calling fag boy?
Seriously?
Asked Schwamp.
After all the shit you've been through, you're worried about being called fag boy?
The stoner goblin turned toward the others.
You know what, guys? No one call this fag boy Sir Ballsfart. From now on, everyone just call him fag boy.
The goblins laughed as I blew out the smoke.
What the fuck, dude? Why you gotta call me fag boy?
Because you're making such a big deal out of it. What's so wrong about being a fag? And before you answer that, remember that you're surrounded by a town full of goblins that have each been nearly murdered by their tribes for being faggots.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being gay, I guess. It's just, do you like being called a fag?
You said it yourself. It just means gay.
No, it means gay in, like, a bad way.
How can someone be gay in a bad way?
I looked around, but I couldn't respond. I guess I'd never thought about it that way. This is extremely problematic.
Exactly. So what's your deal, fag boy? Why were you flopping around in these caves?
Schwamp took another hit from the bong before passing it to the goblin beside him.
I guess it's because I'm trying to kill Baron Rapefist.
I could hear some of the goblins gasp at hearing me say that. Schwamp exhaled.
What are you doing that for?
Because he's taken something from me, but so have you guys.
Really? What did we take from you? Asked Chumfrey.
My mermaid weapon, the Great Lance of Naiadis. It's a big lance. I lost it up in the caves when you guys trapped me.
Chumfrey looked at the others. Anybody see a big lance lately? Did it have teeth on it?
Asked one of the goblins in the back. Yeah, I shouted, and a big narwhal horn.
Yeah, I seen it. It's a lamppost now, over by the river.
Cool. Well, I'm going to take that back, and then I'm going to use it to kill Rape Fist.
Dope, man, replied the goblin in the back. I turned back to Jumfrey.
So, I guess this concludes your lesson with Kachutlet. Have fun playing for Grimhilda.
Thanks, but you don't have to leave if you don't want to.
No, I must. My lady awaits my return with the supernatural anal beads that have been stolen from her butthole.
Okay, well, do what you want to do,
Interjected Schwump.
but know that we got lots of dank shit down here if you just want to chill.
I was beginning to feel a head change and had to admit that shit was rather dank.
Damn! Yeah. But how do you guys even grow weed down here?
We don't. It's this cave fungus we got. Gets you all fucked up, but also chills you out. That's probably why we're more chill than other goblins. Well, that and because we can fuck each other.
Makes sense.
I said as I received the bong from another goblin. I hit the bong once more and exhaled.
I mean, I've already been gone for like 2 weeks or something as it is. I'm sure it wouldn't kill me to chill for a minute.
And that's the end. That's the end of that chapter. Okay. That was probably the most problematic chapter. I don't know if wow. There's some discussion of the power of pejorative words. And now I just, yeah, I don't think I agree with. It's a thinker, you know. So, anywho, I hope that you've been inspired or something from this to be a better person, please. Because if anything can come out of this, oh boy. I just hope. Oh man, I don't even know anymore, you guys. I guess I'll see you next time when we read another chapter of Ballsfart and the Forest of the Penises. This has been Squancho the Monkey Boy, suffering from withdrawals, and gonna let you go now. I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Bye-bye now.